Hey, folks, we're live with my good friend Leigh Steinberg. And folks, you're wondering who the woman Leigh is with, that is the thumbnail for this live stream discussion. It's my mother. And you remember that, Leigh? And again, I thank you all very much. We had a fantastic mom in particular. I was for mom. She's 90 now. She had a fantastic time. Uh,
My mother lived till 94, and so it's very possible your mother will live a long time.
yeah, it's, something that I'll just candidly say I'm having a hard time dealing with. Um, it really, for a lot of reasons, I'll just say succinctly say it's because of growing up, and I think a lot of African American men experience this with a single mother, and in particular, you're out there and you're trying to figure out the path, uh, and I was sheltered a lot. Um, and I had 600 books and magazines. And my mom let me have an environment that sheltered me. She didn't tell me that because someone was white, I couldn't be that, like John Kenneth Galbraith, who is my intellectual hero, right? And I'm very blessed because she created a cocoon for me at a time, the '60s, when you know there was a lot of tumult, and when we were in Chicago. So yeah, I can go on and on and on. And there's a book in me and a movie somewhere. I'll figure it out. But I want to talk about the Super Bowl party. The Leigh Steinberg Super Bowl party in New Orleans for 2025 with the jazz theme. Leigh, let's talk about it, man.
So this will be our 38th Super Bowl party. And the Super Bowl has become a convention of Americana with big business, politics, sports, entertainment, all descending on New Orleans. And so the party brings those worlds together. And so it's at the Jazz Museum, and the theme of it is jazz because it's so integral to the Louisiana New Orleans experience. And we'll have some musical guests playing jazz. But it's and that's a really iconic place to have one. So I try to pick an iconic venue that people are going to want to go to anyway, and they'd like to see the Jazz Museum. So then we're handing out, as we do every year, the humanitarian awards, and they're going for things that people do philanthropically off the field in pro football. And so Gail Benson, the owner of the Saints, is getting that award. There's a woman, Sandra Douglas Morgan, who's we're giving an award to as executive, and she's the first African American woman ever head an NFL team. So we want to highlight that. Then Sean Payton, who used to coach and did a lot for New Orleans, will get that award. We have a player award going to Drew Brees, who also was real active in the community. One going to Brett Favre, who's been fighting for concussion understanding. And one to Mark Morial, who is a former mayor of New Orleans and now head of the National Urban League. And so we'll be raising funds for the National Urban League. And hopefully we'll take a family that is not currently in great living situation and move them into the first house they'll ever own by making the down payment. So we've got all of the usual suspects involved. We're having a brain health summit. The good news on that, Zenny, is for the very first time, through the theory of neuroplasticity, it becomes possible to take a traumatic brain injury, TBI brain, and instead of it going down an inevitable descent into Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, premature senility, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and depression, they can now rewire and recharge a brain. So that's exciting news, and you can do it through neural feedback. And I've been involved with a group called IQ Mind that uses feedback to help people suffering from concussion and rewire the brain. There's another process called TMS. So that'll be happening. Then we have a brain body lounge showing off some new concepts that will help players in critical situations at the end of a game. And more games are coming down to the last quarter, the last drive, and even the last play. So if you can alter and make players more focused, energetic, performing better in those critical moments, that's important. The other focus is to take injured players. And now, because there's a salary cap, if the team's left tackle gets injured and is out per series of games, his replacement is going to be a player at the minimum, a player not making very much money and much less talented than the starter. So every game you could get that player back quicker would be important.
Hey, so let me ask you. I'm curious too. What about, because I know at the New Orleans Super Bowl, I was saying New Orleans, excuse me, it's Las Vegas Super Bowl. Come on, Zenny. I'm not done yet. But you had a poker summit, right? Kind of a poker event. I think Rob Regal attended. Yeah, he did, among other celebrities. Is that going to be at the New Orleans event too, or?
No, that was to bring the focus on something that was unique to Las Vegas. Here, we're not doing that, but we are having an e-game competition. Last year, if you remember, it was Michigan versus Michigan State.
Yep.
This year, it's a number of pro players are going to be participating in because more kids are playing e-games than Little League Baseball. And so it's become an actual sport where they recruit players to college programs. So we're doing that, but no gambling.
And folks, you got to go to Lee's party because, among other things, well, the food is good, but also you meet some of the most interesting people you will ever want to meet in your entire life. And so when you get there early, as I did as a veteran, and get a place where you can plump down, and and then just don't be afraid to meet people. And that's how I roll. You know, I met among other people, uh, the lady who plays Diane Miller on General Hospital. I interviewed her, and my mom wanted to meet her and was just shocked as nobody's business that she got a chance to meet her. She was wonderful, absolutely wonderful lady. Uh,
Well,
and
the one I wish your mother had been at the party where we had Nene Leakes and Cynthia Bailey from Real Housewives of Atlanta.
oh, oh, mom would have thought that interesting. She's like old school soap opera. She likes Young and the Restless, uh, General Hospital, Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives. You know, she's old school stardom. And that's mom. So, like for example, I had a opportunity to meet Shirley Jones once, and that's the kind of person my mom just lights up for. So, there are a number of people at your party who fit in that area, and also you had a great red carpet. Uh, Absolutely talk with celebrities, and how does that work? Do the celebrities, they just flock to your event? Because I noticed that unlike some other events, you really don't go out of your way to list which celebrities are going to be there. You just say come to the party. No, but
Because everybody at the party thinks of themselves as celebrities. Remember,
it's a great point, Lee.
you got if you got Warren Moon, Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Bruce Smith, a variety of players in the Hall of Fame, and you got younger players like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, in that setting, they are the celebrities. So we'll have more people from motion pictures and television and singing this year as we get closer to the event. They confirm how it works is the PR firms that represent the entertainers will reach out to us and ask if they can bring person X, Y, and Z, because otherwise you would never know who was in coming to the game or the Pro City. And so we, had Jamie Foxx, Jennifer Lopez, Adam Sandler, Kevin Costner. I mean, we had, and then a lot of rappers. I kept telling everybody I met this great guy named IT. And it turned out it was Ti.
Yeah. That was Atlanta, right? The Atlanta Super Bowl party, I think. Yeah. Hey, by the way, here is Carolyn Hennessy, who plays Diane Miller. This is at least party. Let's it's only 2 minutes.
I don't know about.
Can you hear that?
Well, the sound was a little bit broken, but
if I can adjust for that, I think
we have political figures, different people, but again,
you there?
Yes.
Okay, let me try that again. I turned off echo cancellation. Let's try this. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Coming back? What can I tell you? We don't know if Spencer is coming back or military. I always forget. We don't know if Spencer's coming back. We don't know. So I'll tell you what's going on with me. And that is, I am. It's things are heating up between Diane Miller and Robert Scorpio.
Yes.
And
lovely couple.
Yes, and how great is it for me as an actress to be with a veteran and a handsome one. And
I'll stop it there because, folks, you can watch the rest of it. But the point is, you can find out what's happening at Leigh Steinberg Super Bowl party about your favorite soap. That was a personal treat. That was something else, Leigh. And so I went. You put together a Boffo party once again. You never miss a beat at all. And tell people where. I mean, you've told it before, but for those who may be watching for the first time or will be at some point, how did all this start so many decades ago?
All of the parties were noisy, crowded, boozy, and dark. And I thought there's got to be a place for us to put our clients into a setting with their families where they can have a good time. So we started building on that, and then eventually had political figures, the vice president. We've had like 20 U.S. senators. We had, but it started in 1985 when it was at my house in Berkeley. And there were a bunch of sports writers who came. And next morning I woke up and a number of the guests were still there. They were laid out, having consumed a little bit too much beverage downstairs. But it's morphed over time. So first of all is the venue. So at in Los Angeles 2 years ago, we did Sony Studios, which is where Jerry Maguire was filmed. We've done Fox Studios. We've done Jazzland in New Orleans. We've done a series of iconic settings. And then it's just grown and grown. So the most people were ever there were 7,000 in San Diego, because I forgot that Los Angeles was going to be bigger. But last year we had about 4,000 people. But the concept is to allow people a chance to meet other people and network. and bring these worlds together for charity and to focus on causes. So when U.S. troops were in Afghanistan and Iraq, we did live hookups between the party there and troops in the field. We brought 9/11 first responders, a variety of different people. This time, I'm extending an offer to people who suffered in the Los Angeles fires. So you're trying to make it time, place, manner. And then we have a silent auction that again raises money for the Urban League this year. We did the homeless a couple of years ago. We did Junior Olympics last year, Special Olympics. So the point is, how can we make a meaningful difference in the world through a party and help people?
Hey, so let's also talk about another aspect of the party that I think is really special, and that is also how you do celebrate what NFL owners do. You mentioned Gail Benson, you celebrated Mark Davis, Jerry Jones. How did that start?
So it struck me that so much of the coverage of people in professional sports is negative. Dog bites man's not a story. Man bites dog is a story. So it focuses on what's aberrational. In other words, you get drunk driving arrests and fights and domestic violence. But that's such an infinitesimal sample group. And the majority of athletes, executives, coaches, and owners are out doing philanthropic things all the time. So I thought maybe it makes sense to highlight that. So we've had Woody Johnson from the Jets and the Haslams from the Browns. We've had Clark Hunt from the Chiefs, and then a whole series of coaches, executives, and a series of players, and then also retired players. And we've been able to bring focus on their charities and what happens with them. So it's called the Steinberg Dana Cola Awards after my partner on it, Cosmo Dana Cola. And
Hey, Cosmo.
it's a way of focusing attention and hopefully role modeling, so that if this athlete or owner can do it, you can too, in some way in your own life, in your own time. Figure out some cause that's critically important to you, and then don't wait around for they or them to fix a problem in the world. Do it yourself.
Yep. Politics is, what is it? Politics is too important to be left to the politicians, eh?
Yep.
There's a lot to be said for that. Let's talk about LA. One of those shocking, episodes of my life, distant. I wasn't there, but from ex-girlfriend's friend to I like you. We have scores of friends and associates, and I hope not relatives, maybe relatives in your case, that are impacted. How did it impact you?
One of my first cousins lost his house and his office burned down. Another one of my cousins lost her house. I grew up in West Los Angeles. We were relatively close to the Palisades, and that's an area. Then you have to imagine these fires normally take place in rural areas, or they take place in the outskirts of Los Angeles. They're not in the actual city itself. They burn on the outskirts. This one came right into wealthy Pacific Palisades, where so many people in the entertainment industry and other industries live. I mean, I've gone to parties with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sugar Ray Leonard lives there. I mean, it's loaded with people like that, and just devastated it. And what happens is this: Normally, the wind blows from the ocean here to inland every day. Two, three, four times a year, the winds turn around and they come off the desert to the east and they blow west.
Hmm.
When they do, the amount of rain we've had is virtually none in Southern California, and they haven't cleared the brush. So it's like imagine a whole area filled with charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
And anything can set it off. It can be a spark from electric wire. It can be a backfire from a car. It can be somebody playing with matches. It can be anything can set it off. And once it happens, the winds are blowing so fast that it becomes really challenging to try to um, fight those fires. And Los Angeles was not well prepared for it. There'll be plenty of time later to apportion blame between the fire department and the mayor and the governor and all the rest of it. But for right now, it's just about helping those people who are in need. I want your listeners or viewers to imagine that all of a sudden this happened to you and your house burned down. All of a sudden you have to evacuate. Where do you put your kids for school? Where do you live physically if you don't have relatives? How do you take care of your needs? How do you go to work? How do you do anything? And so I think it bears for the rest of us that you might want to think about an action plan for if a fire or emergency broke out and what you would take and where you would go and what you would do. And then if you're ever trapped in your house, the power's out and all the rest of it, do you have a generator? Do you have canned goods? Do you have water? But there's a moment of reflection that this spurs.
What do you think of the recovery phase? I know we're in the early stages, but is it Stefan Sobra? I don't want to mispronounce his last name.
Sober.
Soborov, yeah. Do you know him by chance or acquainted with him?
Yes, I do.
What's he like? He get the job done?
Oh, absolutely. Steven Soboroff was head of the police commission. A very talented lawyer who's an action person, and he's like a Peter Uberoth in terms of the ability to to tackle a problem and to figure out where the resources are coming from, and then figure out a battle plan.
And you also, among others, were instrumental in focusing on the LA Olympics for 2028. Simple question: will we be ready?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Los Angeles is a magnificent venue for the Olympics. Back in 1984, I mean, we've got the venues for every sport. We've got multiple arenas, multiple stadia, multiple hotel rooms, multiple of everything. And we're talking about a time 4 years from now. So it's so premature to this discussion about can LA handle it. They have the Super Bowl in 2 years. And remember, there's an impacted area, but life is basically normal if you weren't there. Newport Beach is 60 miles south of the Palisades. We got some smoke, but outside of that, we were not impacted at all. So it's a horror show for those people that were in, and my heart goes out to them. But it's it's a relatively small area of a massive um, uh, area that's got LA County, Orange County, the Inland Empire. It's a massive area, and the area impacted was stunning in its magnitude, but it's a small part of Southern California.
Hey, shifting gears a little bit. Well, before I do shift gears, regarding the recovery, what would you like to see done that hasn't been done yet, or are you satisfied with things as they are?
it's early yet, and so we don't really know. But I'd like to see the federal government. I mean, part of the reason we pay taxes is to help people that are in need, and I'd like to see the federal government step in big time. One of the problems in California is we have so many regulations, and I'm happy that they're concerned about health and safety, but they're going to have to streamline the permit process and make sure that people are actually able to rebuild. And the insurance companies have to step up and not avoid the concept here. Just remember, Southern California is a gorgeous place. It's got natural beauty. It's got the ocean. Um, and I'm sure that most people will want to rebuild. It normally the this whole concept of no rain, dry, um, heavy winds, recurs, but normally it's in the very outskirts, and here it just came into the city.
Wow. Hey, so shifting gears, I want to, as we move here through here, I want your view on Jaden Daniels.
Oh, he's spectacular, and it's amazing to see someone evolve that quickly. So remember that Mahomes had sat on the bench for a year and then came in. So he had time for tutelage. They just throw Jaden Daniels in there, and he's operating just like a franchise quarterback, and is a large reason that this turnaround occurred where Washington had been miserable, and now all of a sudden they're, one game away from the Super Bowl. But part of what happens, Zenny, that's different than years past is we now spot talented quarterback at a young age. And if they're from affluent families, they hire a quarterback coach, but they play in 11 on 11 or 7 on 7 camps. They are developed much more thoroughly, and it, the impact of that quarterback on the team is totally irreplaceable and dynamic.
So now, does that mean that now we have to have, this is the new model? The quarterback has to be able to throw and run, and now we're going to get basically offenses where there's no huddle. Oh, I think I lost Leigh. Um, Maybe we'll get him back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. I just can't. I can see your face from your photo.
Do you want me to call one of my assistants?
Or we could just keep talking. It's up to you. I mean, you can call Chris but that's fine. You were rolling.
So you were asking?
Yeah, I was saying about, we were talking about Jaden Daniels. You were talking about, is that the model now? The Jaden, is he the new model of quarterback that everyone wants? Because we have Shedeur Sanders on the horizon, right?
Okay, so you have certain quarterbacks that can run just like running backs, and Lamar Jackson would be the best example of that. When he runs, he's more elusive than most running backs, so he's a force. Then you got people like Josh Allen, who's huge, and he still runs really well. Someone like Mahomes doesn't use it as his first tool, but when he's in trouble, he runs very effectively. So the answer is you don't have to be a run first quarterback. You just have pocket awareness and understand when to run and be able to do it. And some of these quarterbacks at this moment are running just as effectively as running backs do.
Yeah.
They're elusive, they're tricky, and But it just highlights how important the quarterback position is and why a team needs a franchise quarterback.
But I'm also on that note, Steve Young said something about the modern passing game. I would say now 4 years ago, he said that there was a lot of sloppy passing, and I wonder. And I go back to I had the opportunity to interview Bill Walsh, and I believe that Bill Walsh came back and saw what was going on. I'm going to steal a line from one of my favorite movies, Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters. He never stopped doing up. Uh, I just there's a lot of sloppy passing, Lee. I mean, people are focused on the yards and all that, but I want to know what you thought about it, or maybe if you talk me down from a ledge. What's going on here?
So you have the first group, which I would call franchise quarterbacks. And I'd put in that category Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and quarterbacks like that. Aaron Rodgers at his best. And the reason that those teams win is they're not sloppy passers, they're pinpoint passers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have other quarterbacks that are less talented who are off and on. And that's why any team which does not have a franchise quarterback is endlessly in a search for one. And without it, it's very hard to get through the playoffs and to the Super Bowl. So it's become a quarterback centric league. And the differential you're seeing between those quarterbacks, so let's identify what a franchise quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
It's someone that a team can build around for 10 to 12 or at the best 15 years. It's someone they can win because of rather than with. And it's someone who, importantly, in critical situations where there's been adversity, quarterback's thrown a couple interceptions, the crowd is booing, the game's getting out of hand. What does he do then? Can he compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind, and elevate his level of play to take a team to and through victory?
Mm-hmm.
Franchise quarterbacks can do that, and everyone else has the potential to do it, but doesn't do it consistently.
I gotta ask you, why is it that we place such emphasis on the quarterback as if the offensive coordinator has no role? Here's where I'm going with this. I have a long relationship with Jameis Winston's folks, his agent and parents, not compensation, just because I basically discovered that he was a victim of a fraud in a couple of situations. I don't want to elaborate on, but I've written about it. At any rate, to cut to the chase, Jameis had a great year under Sean Payton. Who's going to get your Humanitarian of the Year award this year? 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and in 2021, which proved that Jameis was the victim of bad coaching before and after, or maybe I think in fairness, well, coaching where they weren't paying attention to footwork, a lot of nuances were lost, tragically lost. So why is it that are we getting quarterbacks to basically cover up bad coaching? What's going on here?
If you wanted to have a draft that really impacted the game, instead of drafting players, you would draft coaches, coordinators, front offices, and owners. Because the care and breeding of a young quarterback is a critical function of coaching. And every year we see multiple first round quarterbacks, some of whom make it and some of whom never do. And they can't all be bad draft picks. Scouting's too good for that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it's a function of what situation that quarterback lands in, and whether or not they have a plan for him, and whether or not they have a supporting cast, and whether or not they've worked with it. You mentioned Bill Walsh. He used to have his quarterbacks sit and watch every interception, so they saw exactly what was happening in those situations. And Jameis Winston has been a player who, when he's hot, is unstoppable, and when he's not, throws interceptions.
Hmm.
So, does coaching matter? Absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember, to your point, Jameis' first game against the Packers when he was with the Saints. He threw 5 touchdown passes, and they beat the Packers 38 to 3, and shocked everyone. But and
To,
there are
but
people. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Mhm.
to your point, look what Sean Payton did with his rookie quarterback now in Denver.
Bo Nix.
He was picking late for Bo Nix. He picked him, who was maybe a first round quarterback, maybe not, but he
Hmm.
won because that's where he was picked. But he wasn't rated as highly as Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May.
Right.
And but he knew how to coach it out of him.
Hmm.
And Caleb Williams had a rough first year. That
Yep.
doesn't mean he won't be a great quarterback, because today the desire for performance instantly is so intense that quarterbacks come out, and instead of giving them 3 years to adjust to the pace of the game and the lack of separation between the wide receiver and the defensive backs, and the complexity of the offense and the more talent that you have at the pros, just throw them out there. And then in 3 games, the uh, different people covering football call that player a bust, and fans do too. Every coach who's got a rookie quarterback ought to prepare the fans for the fact that this is a year that player just has to go through to get better.
Well said. One other question, Lee, before I let you go, and it has to do with uh, what you think is going to happen once we get to 18 players. Because the commissioner said that the 18 players is obviously the next step. 18, I'm sorry, games, not players, but games. An 18 game season. We're already at 17. What kind of adjustments do we need so that we don't have, well, more player injuries? Well, yeah, uh, to be able to do it in a way where players um, can play safely. I mean, we have a new helmet coming online. I noticed. What are
Well,
your thoughts?
so the answer is a football game is a traffic accident on every play.
Yeah.
And players are injured within the way you and I would look at health every week. Every player. You cannot take today's bigger, stronger, faster athletes and throw them into smacking into each other without people being hurt. By the time you get to the 18th week or the 17th game, those bodies are beat up. And I don't know, maybe you'd go with a double bye, or eliminate one preseason game so it becomes 18-2. But the point is that they're going to have to factor that now. By the time you get to the 18th week, you got totally fatigued players who never healed, who are now going to go back in service. And it may be a great revenue producer, but it's not good for the health and safety of players.
Lee, hey, stick around in the background. Lee, don't go anywhere, folks. I want to thank Lee for joining us, and we're going to have more up to his 38th Leigh Steinberg Super Bowl party. Hey, Lee, stick around in the background. That ends this stream. Thanks, everybody.